All right. So, hello, ladies, and welcome to today's 15-minute franchisee interview. So, let's go ahead and get started with introducing yourself. So, Rosaleen, if you wouldn't mind sharing who you are, where you're located, what year you became an owner, and the number of territories you own.
So we own right at home Boston and Maine, we call it officially, and our territories are in eastern Massachusetts, obviously up into the Portland, Maine area, and that is for right at home territories. And we have been open since 2002, which you'll learn is kind of a special date. But yes, so we've been in the system for 23 years.
Wonderful. All right. And who do we have here with you?
With me, we have my daughter, Gabrielle Kenney, who is also a manager here at Right at Home. And so, Gab, maybe you want to talk a little bit about.
Absolutely. So, hello, I'm Gabrielle Kenney. As my mom mentioned, 2002 is a very, special year for us. Not only we started right at home, but I like to joke that my parents were a little crazy starting a home care business with a 6-month-old, aka me, and a 3.5-year-old with zero home care experience. So, to say I grew up with right at home is a little bit of an understatement, but that's exactly why I'm sitting here today.
Oh, that's so special. Thank you for sharing. So, Rosaleen, tell us a little bit about your background before you became a right at home owner.
Absolutely. So, both my husband, Jay Kenney, and I were in the tech field. So really in the dot-com boom of the, late 90s, early 2000s. And we were married a couple of years, as Gab just talked about. We have super young children. And I had a job where I was traveling all over the country and managing sales forces across the country. And I was a very successful young woman. And Jay was the same. But here we were. I was everywhere. We had young children. Also, we like to mention, 9/11. I'm a New Yorker. So we just had a lot of things were changing in our country. And I really started to feel like, I want to run a business that is part of my community. Like all the things I was doing were super fun and work with all these big businesses. But in the end, it was like to be separated from your family and to also do work that was important. However, not as important as what I do today by any stretch of the imagination, because what we do is we really touch people right in their homes today to make their lives better, to improve the quality of their lives, So that's what we envisioned. So we had a couple of things. It was like, okay, that would be nice, to touch your community, to work and live in your local community, but also to keep a roof over your head. I had a whole family to support, and Jay and I really looked at Right at Home at that time, and we're the 25th franchise, and home care wasn't so much of a thing then like it is today, and it's still the same opportunity today, but to look at the demographics and what's coming and how we can support people, we saw that. So we had this future vision for that, and Right at Home was really the best franchise company to go with.
Wonderful. And I was going to ask you that. Why right at home? Why did you choose right at home?
So Jay went to all the different franchise systems at that time, because for us to try to do this on our own, it just was an impossibility. Like, we really needed people with a track record on board. And I have to tell you, after 23 years of dealing with Right at Home in Omaha, that they, it's to have a solid business partner. For real. It's like, and being in business the way that we were, we could easily see who we wanted to hook our wagon to and who was telling us the truth. And I feel that, for 23 years that, I've been dealing with people with integrity. And in the end, that is what matters.
Wow. I love that. Okay. Thank you so much. And so when you think about, obviously, all your years ago when you first opened your doors to now, I'm sure your typical day has shifted quite a bit, right? And then having Miss Gabby over here supporting you. tell us a little bit about what your typical day, Rosaleen, looks like now compared to when you first started.
Sure. And of course, when we first started, it's hard to start up any business. You have the blueprint in front of you, but you have to implement that blueprint. And doing the work that's on the paper is sometimes really hard and not what you're comfortable with. So that there were two of us was helpful. But even if you're a single person looking at this, it's like choose what you feel that you would enjoy. Like, yes, you have to do everything, but really try to carve out like where's the areas of the business that you enjoy working in so that you can grow and bring people in and develop people who enjoy doing these other parts of the business. So that's what that looked like. And we started with one right-at-home office, then it became two right-at-home offices, and then we took a long break, and then we opened a third one in the Boston area. Then we took a super long break, and then we just opened Portland, Maine 2 years ago.
Okay. Wow. So I'm going to shift to you, Miss Gabby. So talk to us a little bit about what your typical day looks like.
So my typical day, I graduated college. I graduated a semester early from Bentley University last year. And so I've been doing a year in every single department. I will say throughout the summers, I did scheduling Monday through Friday. So I had the scheduling aspect definitely under my belt. So last year, my main focus was our private care sales. And I worked really closely with our director of private care sales to, really learn what home care sales is. You only can get so much from learning that type of thing in a classroom, and they just give you, oh, these are great things to say, but really learning to tailor those conversations, have those hard conversations was really awesome things for me to learn. And this past January, I joined our finance team as a financial assistant. So working on billing, payroll discrepancies, the whole nine, which has been really fun.
Awesome. Wonderful. It's so neat to have you both together and partnering in this business. So how did you know, Gabby, this was going to be something you wanted to enter?
Well, like I said, my parents started right at home when I was 6 months old. So to say I grew up with their other baby is a little bit of an understatement for me. And some of my earliest memories are going to assisted livings and going to rehabs. And so I was able to see the impact that we made just by walking in the room. I was able to see every single person's, not just clients, but the staff in those facilities, their faces just light up because somebody else walked through the door that cared about them. And so I really, of course, didn't understand what a business meant at 10 years old, but I remember going to my mom and my dad saying, this is what I want to do. And they were like, okay, you're 10, you might want to be a doctor tomorrow, you might want to be an actress. And I said, no, this is what I really want to do. And so I continued to, go to all of our fundraising events. And I got myself through high school. I went to Bentley University to get my business degree to be sitting where I am today.
I love it. And so it really just resonated with you when you went into those facilities with your parents. I love that. And I'm going to put you both on the spot for a moment because I know there's a lot of those feel-good moments, if you will, in what you do every single day. And so, Gabby, I'll start with you. If you can think of a moment where you had a feel-good moment where you knew you really impacted someone in that moment or made a difference in their life?
Oh, that's a really tough question, actually. I actually think that I'll share a story that's not necessarily pertaining to right at home specifically, but I'll talk about my grandmother who has advanced Alzheimer's, and she's in a memory care unit. And, we talk about with our caregivers all the time that, remembering that just because somebody has Alzheimer's or dementia doesn't mean that they're not a person. And it means that we need to meet them where they are. And, at this point, my grandmother, she doesn't really talk that much, all those types of things. But she made a baby blanket for every single one of her grandkids, which I still have to this day. So every single time I go to see her, I bring it to her, and we can see her start to kind of make those little hems with her fingers, and it jogs her memory. And she looks at me, maybe an hour or two later, she goes, Gabrielle. And I go, hi, Grandma. So really having those types of moments and being able to share those stories with our caregivers to say, hey, we get it too, Your job is tough, and we are here to give you those resources and give you those techniques to be able to connect with your client. Doesn't matter how advanced their Alzheimer's might be or not.
Absolutely. Thank you. How about you, Rosaleen?
We've had so many moments to share with families. And now I really see that the moments that we share with our caregivers. During COVID, I saw a really big shift in how we think, right? Because our caregivers are the ones who are actually going out there doing the work. And yeah, we're getting them scheduled in. Yes, we're supporting them. But in the end, they're doing the work. So when somebody tells me, oh my goodness, I was able to get my son went into college and you guys helped me, or I'm going to nursing school, or all the little ways that we can help them, but also helping them to be seen, because a lot of times home health aides, CNAs, caregivers, they have a life that's different than mine sometimes, and they just need a place that loves them and respects them, and then they'll work with the clients because they love the work. They love the work, right? They came to us, they love the work. So for me, those moments now are really hit the top, because I could tell you a whole bunch of stories of where we really came and saved the day for our elders, and that's absolutely true. But the thing is, actually I didn't, right? It was my caregivers.
Right. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And when you think of the support structure, even that right at home does provide you as an owner, what part have you found to be the most valuable?
I have found, I've definitely found that the performance groups are an amazing gift to us. I've been in a performance group since they started. So that's gotta be, I don't know, 15 years, I don't know, a long time. But the thing is, it is a way, like I've seen people come into our performance group that have gone from 0 to 60. Like they've come in and they're like, I want to be at this level. And then they sit with people who are more experienced or do things a different way. And we're like, well, try what we do. Like, it's like, and you had no idea. Like, here's a great thing. Here's a great example of that. So right when performance groups started, there was some sort of tax credit that Right at Home told us about. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes it's so much stuff coming to you. I remember flipping it out my accountant and be like, oh, it's too much work or whatever, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, just put that down and move on. I'm in my performance group one year, and a guy starts talking, and he's talking about how that credit, how much money it credited him on his tax, like it was huge in our industry. And I was like, what? What? So I had different accountants at that time, figured out a way to get it done, talked to my business coach at Right at Home, got it done. The next year it was a $90,000 tax credit. I'm like, what? But if you're not in a network, how do you know? Like, sometimes I see independent home care and they're like, I'm like, how do you know all this stuff? Because I don't have time for all of it, but Right at Home does get it to me if I consume it.
I love that. And can you speak a little bit more to what a performance group is?
Sure. So a performance group, I think you can join after like a year within the system. And there are groups put together of up to 10 franchisees. And we meet twice a year live. And then we meet the other 2 quarters online. And essentially, it's like your board of directors. What it does is that we all have set our goals publicly or whatever, but there's certain metrics that they can pull out of our numbers and whatnot. So we have a comparative form that we go through every quarter. And it's not that we're comparing to each other. What we're comparing to is the ratios and like, is this in line? So if you have a $3 million business versus a $10 million business, it's like how those numbers are moving. And could this number actually be healthier? Or if I committed to something, right? And then I completely blew it off in my head and didn't do it. And then my group's like, hey, you said you were doing this. And I'd be like, So it sets up as an individual business owner that you're making commitments outside your business, and that to keep them and also to grow together, and also to have this group of people that really celebrates what you're doing. Like if we have men and women in our group who are buying additional territories or doing like we're celebrating them, or how did you do this, or how do you centralize your stuff? Or if something comes up, we say, okay, you do this, great. Like I have someone I can absolutely trust and call and say, I would like to do that. I don't know if I can in my market. Can you spend time with me and kind of bring me through that? And in a performance group, they will. And I will also do the same for them.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And then finally, what would be one piece of it to a prospect who is currently looking at right at home?
One piece of advice I think that I would give to them is that first, I think you have to love the idea of what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It is hard work.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to love that idea. But what we do is so important. And then that it can be a successful business and take care of you and your family is amazing. So I think that my best piece of advice would be, first off, to watch your money, because you just have to see how your money moves in this business. And then don't give up, because my husband, he'll tell you when we were in our first year, he was a salesperson and it wasn't working for him. And he really was like, we made a terrible mistake. And, right at home, they just kind of said, well, what are you doing? And like today they have coaches to do that. So, but really, because they have so much experience, they know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So to turn that back and fix that, and then all of a sudden, bang, it takes off. That is the story of how most right homes work. But it's really working within the system and working and understanding, just like if you started your own anything other business, that it's the activity and all that. But it's definitely to watch your money. Mm-hmm. And, because it's really, but the sweat that you put in the beginning, it will pay off.
Great tips. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And first of all, Rosaleen, congratulations on your success in this business. Having your daughter join you in the business, it doesn't get any better than that. Right. And really for all of you doing good in your community and really putting an emphasis on making a difference. So thank you. Awesome. You guys have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, Jenna.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.